Hello everybody, Beard Reads Books here, and welcome to your Wednesday film review video, in which I'm going to be talking about the 2005 film, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. Now, I suspect pretty much all of you know the basic storyline. For those of you that don't, it's about four children who get evacuated out of London to the countryside during the Second World War, and they basically get posted to this like big country house. And one day, sort of, they find it in one of the sort of unused rooms, a wardrobe, through which they get into the land of Narnia. And upon arriving at Narnia, they find that they've got there's basically a prophecy about how they're going to be like come kings and queens of Narnia, and they're going to break the spell of the White Witch. Because when they arrive there, it's eternal winter and all the rest, but they break the spell, break the White Witch's power, and become kings and queens of Narnia. I mean, that's the basic storyline. Now, it's been a long time since I've watched the film. I reckon the last time I probably watched it was way back when it came out of the cinema, nearly 20 years ago. So I sat down and watched it yesterday, and I was really impressed with it. It's aged really well. I mean, the graphics, like there's like the CGI and all the rest. It's Yeah, I'm really impressed with how it's aged. I mean, a couple of points where you can tell it's definitely sort of green screen work. So, a couple of little areas where it's sort of not aged too brilliantly, but overall, it still holds up really, really, really flipping well. And they did really good with the old special effects in that. I mean, Aslan the Lion, that was really impressive. I think they did well with that. And I mean, some of the casting they did was, I think, good. Liam Neeson, he he did absolutely spot on job, I think, of doing the voice of Aslan the Lion, and Tilda Swinton as the White Witch, like the Queen of Narnia. I think she got that role pretty good. She really did nail that one. Now, I'm old enough to remember the BBC like series of The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe that came out in the 1980s, and I could just about remember the sort of the White Witch from that. And the film version of the White Witch, much better casting than what they did in the 80s. Nothing against the actress who was in the 80s BBC series, but the film version, much more spot on. Find it much more believable. The actress as the White Witch. Yeah, and the music, the musical score throughout the film. Well impressed with that. Well impressed. Thoroughly enjoyed it. So that was a good bit of work in that. And the beavers. Now, any of you that've seen the 1980s BBC series, they didn't have like very good special effects back then and all the rest, and it was just people in like suits, costumes, and that. And yeah, the beavers back in that they were not too not too brilliant. So I must admit, watching the film, I just kept thinking of the. I couldn't get the image of the beavers from the BBC series out of my head, so I couldn't quite get into this like watching them on the film. I just kept thinking of the BBC series one, so which was a bit off putting, but that not to worry. Now, I'm not. This is just my personal feelings. I'm not sure Dawn French was quite the right person to voice Mrs. Beaver. Nothing against Dawn French, it just didn't work for me personally. Not personally, but you know, some people will probably think it was really, really good. So it just didn't work for me personally. But I mean, yeah, like it's a 2.5 hour film. Well, near enough. but it's such a good film. It didn't feel like 2.5 hours. I was so engrossed in the film. It's like, it just flew by. I was so thoroughly enjoying it. It just didn't really feel like it was that long. Because some films they drag. When you get sort of about the 2 hour mark, they really feel like a flipping long 2 hours. But this one, though, it didn't feel like 2.5 hours. So, yeah, it was good. It was good. But one thing that I really liked, Jim Broadbent as the professor. I wish his character could have had more screen time. I mean, okay, it's only a very, very minor part of the story, so Jim Broadbent got as much screen time as the character deserved. So if he did have more screen time, it might not have been, probably wouldn't have been a good thing. But because I do quite like Jim Broadbent as an actor, and in a way, I wish it could have been like a bit more screen time in a way. But one thing I really, really liked, one bit of acting that Jim Broadbent really, really got on point, because obviously you got the prequel to The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, which is the magician's nephew, and the professor in The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, he's the magician's nephew in the first book. So obviously Jim Broadbent's character, he's been to Narnia, and that he went there when Narnia was created. So in The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, when the four Pevensey children go to Narnia, he knows all about it. He knows what's going on, And right at the end of the film, okay, this is a bit of a spoiler if you haven't seen the film, but right at the end of the film, so when they come back to England from Narnia, they sort of come, all four of them come out the wardrobe at the same time, and a few seconds later, the professor, Jim Broadbent's character, comes into the room, and like where the wardrobe is, and he sees them sort of lying on the floor. He sort of looks at them and he's like, "Oh, what are you doing down there?" And the look in his eye the expression on his face says everything. That expression on his face says, "Yeah, I know what you've been up to. I know where you've been." And they're all like, and of course the kids, the four Pevensey children, they don't know they don't know that he's been to Narnia. They don't know he knows all about it. So they're kind of looking up at him and says, "Oh, you wouldn't believe us if we told you." And he sort of looks at them and smiles. It's a knowing smile. The expression says, I would believe you. I know what's going on." And he just sort of looks at me and says, "Try me." And it's just, he really nailed the facial expression. The expression that says, "Yeah, I will believe you because I know exactly what you've been up to. I know where you've been." And yeah, his body language, his facial expression, everything, he just really nailed that. Yeah. So that was a superb bit of acting. I mean, there was brilliant acting throughout. And, well, I mean, another thing that I really liked about the film was that it wasn't wholly reliant on CGI and special effects. There's quite a lot of characters that are sort of see if I can pronounce it right, prosthetics, and it was a flipping good job they did on the prosthetics. Sort of all the different sort of characters, the Minotaurs and all the rest and everything else. And yeah, that was a bit of a good work, and it just made it also very believable. Yeah, cracking good job, I think. I would highly recommend seeing the film, the 2005 film. Guys, I wouldn't recommend watching I was just about to say I wouldn't recommend watching the BBC series from the 80s. But thinking of it, that was very, very, very cheesy effects. Very just cheesy all over. So if you like cheesiness, suppose the 80s when it was almost a case of so bad it was good. But if you're going to choose between the 80s TV series and the 2005 film, it's got to be the 2005 film. It is a cracking good film, definitely. I would highly recommend it. Well, guys, that's just my little Wednesday film review for you. Hope you enjoyed. Like I say, if you've watched the film itself, drop me a comment and let me know what you thought of it, the film, if you enjoyed it or didn't enjoy it, and all the rest. Be happy to hear from you. And on that happy note, I'm gonna bring this video to an end. Hope you've enjoyed. Look forward to seeing you in the next one. And in the meantime, guys, happy watching.